Coach Baker, why don't you come on up?
Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today. I was telling Jack on the way up here, when I first got in the car, we had some workouts earlier today with some of the Bucks players as they filtered back in town getting ready for the season. And I was telling Jack on our ride up here that, this is truly like the most important thing that I do is share my story. Being a Bucks coach is obviously amazing. I get to see Giannis every single day. Who doesn't want to see Giannis every single day? But this is truly, to me, my purpose in life. I want to start off by saying I'm so grateful to God for having another opportunity and a new lease on life. I had absolutely hit rock bottom in every facet of my life, spiritually, physically, financially, relationships. My life had hit rock bottom, and I had this amazing opportunity to get drafted in 1993 by the Milwaukee Bucks. Probably at that particular time, the most exciting time in my life is being picked to play your dream, for your dream to come true. And 1993 was picked by the Milwaukee Bucks with the 8th pick, and I had 4 terrific years here in Milwaukee. Was an NBA All-Star for 3 out of the 4 years that I was here. Played for a wonderful city. That's probably the best thing that happened when I was in Milwaukee. We didn't have the type of success that we're experiencing right now. Most people know me for being Coach Baker, not Vin Baker, the basketball player. We didn't win that many games in our career, so. But it is exciting to be back. But having that kind of success that early in my life and in my career was amazing. It was a high or an experience I really can't explain, like just being one of the top players in the world and going out every night and competing at the highest level was awesome. But while I was competing at the highest level in basketball, I was starting to pick up a bad habit off the court. I started to drink and I started to smoke. And when you're 25, 26, 27 years old, you just feel, or I felt, invincible. Like I felt I could drink when I wanted to. I felt like I could smoke when I wanted to. And the thing that was really crazy about my situation is that I was doing this stuff off the court, but I was having success on the court. So I was having this delusional thought that, all right, well, the partying really isn't that bad. I'm an all-star, I'm all NBA. I was leading the league in minutes played per night. I was selected to the Olympics in 1997. I was selected to the Olympic team. So I kept partying and I kept drinking and I kept hanging out. I was traded to the Seattle Supersonics in 1997 in a 3-way trade. And when I got to Seattle, I really didn't have any issues with partying. It was like, all right, I'm traded and this is a new start in my basketball career. A few of my teammates when I got there loved to, hang out and party and drink. And so my first year in Seattle, we won 61 games. We were the #1 team in basketball. And I was on this crazy roll, selected as an all-NBA basketball player. But one thing that was really, every night we won, I went out and partied. I went out and drank every night. And that year, 1998, we lost to the Los Angeles Lakers in the second round of the playoffs, and I fell into this deep, deep depression. Like I just was like, it went from here to like 0 in my spirit. I just thought the world had come to an end. And it was really like we just lost the playoff series, and I would have another opportunity to play again. But for me, it was my world had come crashing down. But what I didn't realize at that point was I was also entering alcoholism. Like now this party and this moment in my life of just losing a playoff series was like way more devastating than it should be. And so instead of going back to the gym and working more, I started to drink more. And by that summer, by the time I got back to my second season with the Sonics, which would have been my sixth season in the pros, by the time I got back to the season, I was a full-blown alcoholic. Like 4-time NBA All-Star, 2-time All-NBA player, and overnight, like within 4 months, I couldn't step on the basketball court without picking up a drink. And I did not know initially, when I first got back to the season, my first kind of indications, I would go on the court and I was feeling like, I don't know if anyone's ever seen Space Jam in here, but I felt like all my basketball powers were gone. And I didn't know what was going on. Like, I'm like, what? I was having like, I'd go to the free throw line and I was literally like, I could feel my body trembling and I was like, what the heck is that? And I couldn't tell anyone. And so, a guy that I knew at that particular time, he said to me, and this is just to give you a little context of the story, like I became an alcoholic the year I was about to enter free agency, the year I was about to get this huge sum of money. I find out I'm an alcoholic. And I had this guy tell me before a game, because now I'm shaking, I'm a mess, my life is flashing before my eyes. I'm like, I can't even hold the basketball on the court. So this guy says to me, what do you think about drinking before games? And I knew that I was an alcoholic. I had kind of self-diagnosed myself like, yeah, there's something terribly wrong here. And so I started to drink prior to games. I ended the season. I went into free agency. There were rumors, and we smelled. Alcohol is pretty hard to disguise when you're running up and down the court for a living. And I ended up convincing everyone that I wasn't an alcoholic, and this was just an aberration, and that I would be better next year. And so the Seattle Supersonics went on to sign me to a 6-year, $80 million deal. And I was a full-blown alcoholic. So doesn't take anyone, you don't have to show me hands, but how many people know that if you give a full-blown alcoholic $80 million, what's next that's gonna happen? And so I was traded from Seattle because now I think that's I don't have to work out, I don't have to be in shape, I just have to maintain my weight, and then I just drink before games, and my life will be fine for the next 7 years. Well, I didn't get out of year 2, and I was traded to the Boston Celtics, and they started to test me, and I signed an addendum to my contract. They forced me to sign an addendum, and it was the right thing to do, saying that if I drank in a year, they would take away the contract. And of course, being a full-blown alcoholic, getting the contract because I was a full-blown alcoholic, I drank under that, and they terminated my contract, which is the best thing that happened to me. So I went on after I was terminated from Boston. I played for about 2 or 3 more teams. I continued to be in this crazy fog of, the weird thing about when the Boston Celtics terminated me, to be perfectly honest, I was like super happy. I'm like, now I don't have any rules to this. I can go and just drink without having to, get in a cup every day to prove to them that I'm not drinking. And so that was my first thought. And After about 2 years of going back and forth to different teams, I finally, and I kept drinking, I just hit rock bottom. I lost every single dime. My house was foreclosed on. My relationships with my mom, my dad, my children became really strained, and I was pretty much all by myself. And I grew up in the church, so I don't get preachy here, but I grew up in the church, so I knew that I had my saving grace was I just looked in the mirror and said, God, I just need help. And at this particular time, I had nothing left, like no cell phone, no money, no friends, no anything. And so I decided to go to this place in Connecticut called Rushford. My mind was made up. I had tried like 3 times to go and get help. And this last time, I was like, I gotta get sober. I'm just no good to myself. I'm no good to my kids. My mother and father were terribly disappointed in me, and I knew that I was breaking my mother's heart. And so finally, I went and checked into a place called Rushford in Connecticut, and I stayed there. And I made up in my mind and my spirit, I'm never picking up alcohol again. And that was 9 years ago that I had my last drink. When I made the decision to get sober, it wasn't like I had nothing. So there wasn't like people saying, do this or else. It was just, I don't have anywhere else to go. And so once I got sober, one day at a time, my mind was coming back to me. I started feeling better about myself. Again, I had no phone calls. No one believed in me but me. And I had no phone calls. I just really my mom and my dad were bringing me food, bringing me $20. I went from this massive amount of money to asking my dad for $20 just to get back and forth, which is really all I needed at the time. And so, but the most important thing I think from my story and what I want to share with you guys today is when I decided to get sober, great things started to happen. Like really good things started to happen in my life. And it didn't feel ideal going from an NBA All-Star, All-NBA, traveling first class to basically having nothing. Didn't feel good. But the more sober days I started to pile up, 10 days, 15 days, a month, 2 months. It didn't register in my bank account, but it started registering in my spirit. Like I started to feel good about myself. And I'm kind of a super optimistic person. Trust me, 30 days into my sobriety, I didn't say to myself, I'm going to be coaching Giannis Antetokounmpo one day. I know it, I just got to stay sober. I actually, before I got an opportunity to come back and coach the Bucks, I was serving caramel macchiatos and venti coffees and tall coffees and grande coffees at Starbucks. But the beauty of it was I was sober. That was the most important thing to me. I didn't have any ideas. I know this feels amazing, but to sit here and say that I got sober so I could be a coach in the NBA is not realistic. But great things happened for me. People believed in me again. And interestingly enough, one of the knocks against former players, basketball players, why there's not a ton of us in the NBA coaching, is because they think we're lazy. And true story, like they don't think we'll be able to get up in the morning and coach. And so the good part for me was when the Bucks came calling was I was at Starbucks working. Like I had been up at 3:45 opening the store. So if I can learn how to serve all these elaborate drinks, I definitely can help Giannis with a jump shot. But really, and in the book, I want to let you guys know that I hit my lowest point. It was dark. Like rock bottom really was rock bottom in every facet of the phrase rock bottom. No friends, no money. I barely at some point had food to eat. But the sobriety and taking it one day at a time, the sobriety really started providing a real boost for me in every facet of my life. And one day at a time. I didn't set any expectations. I just said, I just want to be sober. I want to be sober for my kids, and I want to be sober for my mom and dad. And I'll share this with you, and then I want you guys to get an opportunity so we can have some open dialogue. I'm a licensed minister now. I got my license to minister about 6 years ago. And one of the things I wanted to do was preach in front of my mom, because my mom had gone through so much, like she was just in pain through this whole ordeal. And I got a chance to preach this past Sunday at home in Connecticut. And I looked over at my mom, and she was just in tears and crying. And really, that could be the end of the story for me, that my mom was so happy, and it did my heart good. Out of everything that I've done in life, writing a book, learning how to make caramel macchiatos, and coaching the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals and this year to the finals. Seeing my mother smile was probably better than me being drafted by the Bucks, for the simple fact that she knows how much that I had to overcome in getting sober, and we all can do it. You can get sober, like no matter what situation you're in. If I can do it, I promise you, you can do it. Like there's all different circumstances of how we got there, where we're at. But if I can do it, you can definitely do it. And that's why I came by today, to tell you guys that you can overcome and you can make it, just one day at a time. Set no expectations, but one day at a time. And if you take one day at a time, it'll become a month, become 2 months. And then all the rest of the stuff will fill in. Relationships will come back, opportunities will come, and you can definitely do it.